And I put them at 8.
Number 7.
The Bucs. I buy into it. Again, Baker's playing his butt off. 8-2 over his last 10 starts. He and Chris Godwin are totally connecting. Now, the Denver game this week is sneaky. And they're, right now, though, to go to Detroit, they went in there all banged up and injury-riddled, and they won. So I buy Tampa. I buy Baker. He's playing with a ton of confidence. I've always thought Todd Bowles a good defensive coach. In New York, I didn't think he was quite ready for New York. If his first job would have been in Tampa, it may have been different, but in New York, they're impatient. I like the coach, and I like the quarterback. I have them at 7.
No.
Pretty remarkable to see Colin Cowherd go full circle on Baker Mayfield, right? And that's why credit to Colin to be so adaptable to changing his mind. And that's why Colin is my favorite. He doesn't double or triple down on anything. His opinion evolves and changes, especially as he gets new or different information. And I'm sure if you're a Baker Mayfield fan, that's got to be music to your ears, right? A Baker Mayfield led team, top 7, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2-0. Let's go. Definitely really exciting. Yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers are a really feisty team. I'm still struggling to make sense with a lot of teams, quite frankly, and I've said this about all these games, right? I watch a ton of them, right? Like, I keep showing my notes in various videos, and it's like I literally just got endless pages. I watch all these games. It's not to say that I'm a super expert. It's not to say that I know every single thing under the sun or that I know more than you and, I'm the master here. It's not to say that. And so I just try my best to convey my opinion and how I'm making sense of all of this. And it's always hard to understand what a team is in the first couple of weeks, except for if they play 2 bona fide great teams. But even then, you could argue, well, was that great team? Like, let's say you beat the Kansas City Chiefs week 1 or week 2. You're like, well, were they ready? Were they prepared? Were they this? Were they that? Is it going to take them a few weeks to kind of get going their flow? You just don't know. And with the Buccaneers, they've proved 2 things to me, and 2 important things to me, quite frankly. One, they proved that they can clearly beat an inferior team in the Commanders, right? And they put a whooping on them, right? They owned and dominated that game start to finish. Baker Mayfield absolutely balled out, right? You can't argue anything against that. But we know that the Commanders were not a good team last year. They haven't been a good team in years. And that's just the reality. It's going to take a minute or 2 for the Commanders to start to maybe go in a more positive direction. And clearly the Buccaneers are ahead of them, at least right now. Maybe that changes down the road. Who really knows, quite honestly. And then they beat the Lions. And this seems to anger Buccaneers fans, and they seem to be taking it personally. But I've made these statements about various games, not just the Lions versus the Buccaneers. The Lions have not looked great. That's just the reality. And I'm going to compliment the Buccaneers more, so don't panic. But they have not. They beat the Rams, but they absolutely could have lost to the Rams. The Rams were in shambles, and they went to overtime with them. And, just because of the overtime rules and the fact that the Rams, that the Lions were able to just run is how they were able to do it. And it was a good win for them, but it wasn't pretty. It was ugly. You're really reaching for some of the little things to be able to complement the Lions. And then we saw what happened to the Rams versus the Cardinals. They dominated the Rams. They made the Rams look like a JV team, right? And it's just like, that's why the Lions have not been playing good. And against the Buccaneers, they did not look good. And you can't give all the credit to the Buccaneers. The Lions just did not look good. But what could we take away from the Buccaneers of that game is that the Buccaneers deserve to win that game. They continue to fight. They seem more focused. They played harder, and they proved that they could win an ugly, muddled game. Baker Mayfield did not play that good in that game. He had a couple really awesome highlight moments. I watched that game start to finish, right? Obviously, his juke was amazing. I mean, he literally looked like, an all-time great in that moment. But if you look at the stats and you look at the numbers and you just watch the film, it wasn't his best game ever, right? I mean, like, he was not, he was like a lower-level ranked quarterback for week 2. That's just the reality. I'm not saying he's a lower-level quarterback or a bottom quarterback, but we can't just say that game is proof how good they were or how good they are, because yeah, a lot of people have the Lions pretty high up there, but they have not been playing that good as of right now. They made some really bizarre decisions, bizarre play calling. Jared Goff throwing the ball like 50-some times, right? They weren't running it. Weird timeout usage. It was just a weird game. But the Buccaneers did prove 2 things to me: that they could win a game that they're inferior against, and that they could win a ugly, muddled game. So what's the next thing that I really need to see them do to really believe, to really start to have confidence in what the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield can do? I want to see them, they don't even have to win, but I want to see them compete in a really tough, close, great game, right? Have a team like the Lions actually competing great. Like, have a go against the Eagles, and this might be probably maybe one of the better I'm not sure. Oh, right, they play the Broncos. I don't know how much we're going to learn against the Broncos. Maybe Bo Nix and Sean Payton really figure it out. I don't know. Or maybe they continue to just not be too good, and then it's like, how much can you take away from beating the Broncos? But I think the Eagles will be interesting because if they can win a close game, a tough game, or even if they just prove to be able to be competitive, right? Even if the score ends up being 31-30 or whatever, and the Eagles win, I would still be like, the Buccaneers are for real. To me, it's not always all about the outcome, about the wins and losses. It's what do you look like on, what does the film say? What did the game look like? Which is why I'm not just saying they beat the Lions and they crowned them. Like, I'm literally saying that the Buccaneers can play awesome. They can go up against the Kansas City Chiefs and have an awesome, hard-fought, tough game and end up losing. But I want to see both teams playing great football. I know they can win a football game where both teams are playing ugly, but that's different. And I know they can win a game when they're clearly a better team or clearly just playing by far better than the other team with a rookie quarterback. I know that. I want to see them win a close, tough game where the opposing team is playing great and the Buccaneers are playing great. That's the next level. They do that, then I'm going to start to really feel comfortable placing the Buccaneers higher up there. And like I said, they don't have to win that game necessarily. They just need to prove that they belong. They need to compete. They need to make it close. You need to feel throughout the game that they truly have a chance to win that game. That's what I ultimately look for when you're talking about two great teams playing each other. They don't have to win. They just have to look like that they belong, and they look like that they actually have the opportunity to win. The Dolphins versus the Kansas City Chiefs game was technically close in the playoffs, but never did I feel like the Miami Dolphins were going to win that game. Never did it feel the Dolphins were ever in control. You were thinking technically there's a prayer. Technically Tyreek Hill could rip off for like a 75-yard touchdown, like technically, but you were never like, okay, Tua and the Dolphins, they got this going. They're going to be able to make some moves. You never felt that way. Same thing with the Ravens versus the Chiefs, right? And I know this is obviously last year, but you're watching that game and the Chiefs felt like they were in control the whole time. Technically, the Ravens could have won that game, but it wouldn't have felt good, honestly. It really wouldn't have. Obviously, you would have felt good because you would have went to the Super Bowl, but it was just clearly the Chiefs were more in control throughout that entire game. So I'm just looking to see what the Buccaneers can do. Again, I'm not worried about last season in terms of what the Buccaneers did. So Buccaneers fans, you don't have to come at me and be like, well, this is what they did to this team, that. I don't care. I'm specifically talking about this season, what's going on right now. I really don't know what the takeaways are from if they beat the Broncos. Honestly, the only takeaway would be if they lose, right? If they lose, and it would be like, okay, right? Like, they just lost to a team that has not looked good. Like, what does that mean? But if they win, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, the Broncos are not looking good, right? Like, they lost to the Steelers and they lost to the Seahawks. So, not so sure what they're looking like. So it'll be it's still going to be a good watch, a good game to see. Still some things to learn. But the Buccaneers are obviously in a great position to start 3-0, which definitely seems necessary because the Falcons now seem like they've readied the ship with they're being 1-1. The Saints being 2-0 right now. There's a good chance that they could be 3-0 as well. So this division could end up being very tough and a very fight to the end. So every win matters, especially with the division now. We're really starting to get into the meat and potatoes of the season in a way where you gotta win the games that you're supposed to win. And the Buccaneers should win against the Broncos, but with a rookie quarterback and a coach like Sean Payton, you don't know. Maybe he finally is able to put together a great game plan to get Bo Nix firing. Maybe that defense is actually pretty good. It's hard to really know, honestly, because I can't make sense of the Broncos either right now. I know they haven't looked great, but it's like, it's hard to make sense of a team 100% with 2 games. But if you're a Buccaneers fan, you should definitely be excited. You should definitely be happy. You should definitely be optimistic and encouraged by what you're seeing. You were able to win 2 ways right now, 2 completely different ways. I'm looking for that third. When they do that, I will feel much more confident in crowning the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield's resurgence? Are you buying what they're selling, like Colin, placing them at top 7? Do you think that's a good spot for them? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? Should they be off the top 10? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.